Warmly welcoming you to How Does She Do It, the podcast, with me, your host, Jo Ferroni. Join me on my journey as I explore finding a gentle balance in both business and life, because being kind to ourselves is our superpower. My guest this week is Louise Brooks, who is both a brilliant and inspirational parent coach and family advisor, and all-round wonderful human being. Louise runs Parenting Success, helping parents become clear on what they bring to their own parenting from their own past, really sifting through what serves them and what doesn't. Our family have learnt so much from Louise's sessions, and I highly recommend that you check her out too. There is so much more which I know you're going to love, and I urge you to check out the links to find out more about Louise and her work in the show notes, as you're going to want to learn more about her free masterclasses, courses, and one-to-one work too. Enjoy the show. Hello, Louise, and welcome. How are you doing?
Hello, Jo. I am very good, thank you. Loving the sunshine and the glorious weather that just seems to have washed onto our shores recently. Is fantastic.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah. It's wonderful. Spring is in the air. And in fact, we were just talking before we pressed record, weren't we? That we can hear the bird song, and I've got chickens and cockerels in the background, not in my space, but in a garden nearby, which is just glorious to hear.
Which is just adding to the ambience, isn't it? It's really nice.
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely. So we hope to bring a chilled vibe to our listeners today.
Definitely.
So thank you so much for coming. You are my very first guest on the podcast, and it is very kind of you to join me. Very brave of you to be my first, and as you will have heard, because I know that you've kindly listened to my first couple of episodes, I am on a journey with this. I am hoping to improve as I go. I know that I'm going to be learning so much as I go. So let's roll with it today, and I hope that it will be a really enjoyable experience for you.
Yeah, but Jo, it's an honor to be your first guest.
Thank you.
Please know that. So thank you for having me.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm very lucky to know you, but the audience do not know you yet. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your business.
Yeah, it's always one of those big questions. Where do we start? But, I'm from Denmark originally. I always like to get that out the way first, because especially now that we're in an audio format, you will pay extra attention to people's accents. So that is obviously a huge part of me being from Denmark originally. And I'm a mom of two. I have a daughter who's 9, just turned 9, and a son who's 6. And I'm married to an English man, Dean, who lives here, we live here in Surrey. And I run Parenting Success, which is my baby, basically.
Yeah.
Which is the company that I support parents through. So in my role as a parent coach and family advisor, I absolutely love being able to, support moms and dads. I always say, with anything and everything that comes up on their parenting journey, because I just know that it's never only smooth sailing, is it? It's
no.
It's a bumpy old ride. And there's no way of outsmarting that. It's just part and parcel. And so I do that primarily through my one-to-work work with clients, see parents. Ideally in the old world before COVID, I would see them face to face here in my office.
Yeah.
And now I've really enjoyed actually this transition into the online space as well. So through Zoom. Always had my reservations about Zoom, whether we could create the same kind of intimacy, but I'm finding that it is working so well to see parents this way, and also because it cuts out all the travel time and all the stuff that can sometimes make seeing someone like me feel like an impossible task on top of a busy family life.
Absolutely. I should imagine it's almost like taking an obstacle out of the way, because I think sometimes it can take people a little while to decide that they're ready to work with someone. And actually logistics can then be that next hurdle, can't
That's
they?
the thing.
So having
That's the
removed
thing.
those and allowing people perhaps to even remain comfortable because they are in their own space that's familiar.
You're so right, Joe. There's something about being in your safe space and being able
Yeah.
to wear your slippers if you so choose. You feel contained generally in your own space, right? So to do
Yeah.
that and also have the opportunity to do it at times of day when suits you best. So I've actually seen quite a few parents at nighttime as well throughout
Yeah.
this last year, which has worked well. So when I'm not doing that, or alongside doing that, I should say, I do work with organizations and schools as well, providing talks and workshops, now called webinars. And obviously do, as you would have, known through my free parenting masterclasses. I do, more extended work as well, some parenting courses on various topics. So
Yeah.
yeah, I try and reach out through various channels. And if there's anything this past year has really allowed us to do is to sort of experiment with different ways of reaching out to our audience, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you have adapted to it so well. And maybe you've done things that perhaps you wouldn't have done in that way before. And
Absolutely.
you probably, there'll be some people that you will continue to see online, I should imagine.
Yeah.
Because, logistics and location doesn't have to be affected, does it, when you're working
No.
in this way?
No, I
I
mean
love that.
some of my courses have been attended by people in India. I've had people from
Wow.
calling in from Dubai and Denmark and I think Ireland. So it's just wonderful to see how much more inclusive it is when you move these, when you use these platforms. And saying
Yeah.
that, there is a few things beat, being in a room together with other people. I do miss that. I'd be lying if I say that
Yeah.
there's only good things about this platform. It is wonderful to see people that way.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't quite replicate real life, can you? Not fully, I don't think. But it's all got its place, I think, and
Yeah.
how much we will really, really enjoy that treat that will be meeting in real life when that can happen
It's going to
again.
taste so much sweeter, isn't it?
Oh, I love that. What a great description. Oh, that's
Yeah.
brilliant. Oh, what a lovely introduction. It's so nice to hear, I think, from people personally what they do. And I love that you've included how you've had to pivot during this pandemic as well, because
Yeah.
that's going to be so relevant to our listeners because everyone has had to adapt in different ways. And I think it's just so important to hear from others,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah, and to also just, I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, Joe, but I would be lying if it says if I said that it's just been smooth sailing, transitioning, and pivoting, this new word that's entered into
Yeah.
our vocabulary. Of course, there was a period of time where I had real doubt. Can I do this? I mean, I don't have the IT skill to do this, and so overcome initially with doubt and fear and all the emotions that I would imagine your listeners know all too well in their businesses as well. And
Absolutely.
then to finding ways through just little steps, and then suddenly actually looking back and thinking, do you know what? When you look back and you really take stock of your journey, it amounts to so much when you just focus on the next right step, right?
Oh my gosh, you are speaking to me. I have got tingles running all the way through my body. That resonates massively. And
That's it.
a few things you've just said there. I wonder whether in future I'm going to have to scribble notes as I go. It's like, oh, I want to remember that bit and just talk around that bit that you just said. Work in progress, folks. Sorry about that. But a few things you've just said there really, really resonated. And I'm so pleased that you spoke them out loud because we have got to be open and honest about the things that are a struggle. The fact that you admitted, can I do this? At a
Yeah.
point. I think so many of us have been there, but what a lot of people see from the outside looking in towards someone as a person or as a business person, they see the finished product.
Yeah. And there's always
And
a story behind it.
yeah, and they will then compare I always talk about it as their backstage with someone else's final performance. And so by doing that, and I've definitely fallen victim to that in the past. By doing that, people almost write themselves off because they're like, well, I can't do that because look at what's going on here. I don't understand this, or I don't know that. So thank you for being so honest. You know that I encourage that.
I think we're obliged to be. I think we got to be more transparent with our struggles and with the realness behind things, right? Because otherwise, as you say, it can really impact negatively on other people. So that is such an important part of being part of a female entrepreneur group as well, if you want, I think, is to really speak honestly about these things, but also celebrate each other's successes. Another important part that is not just only focusing on the struggle, but equally being there for each other to illuminate each other's gifts and celebrate each other.
Absolutely.
So,
to really shine that light on each other. And I think that actually as women, and certainly if I think about my community and my clients, we can be really, really supportive, real cheerleaders for one another. But even if we're brilliant cheerleaders for others out there, it somehow takes a little bit more to be that cheerleader for ourselves and to just pause and take stock and go, like you said, look at all these things I've achieved. Yeah. It's huge. So that's another message I'm really keen to keep going on about.
We can't hear it enough, right?
We can't. And, I need it as much as anybody.
Yeah.
But, we've got to keep working at that, I think. So, well done for all you've achieved and well done for recognizing how far you've come just during this time. And we're going to get on to hearing a bit more about, life outside of the pandemic as well. Yeah. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. So some of the things I wanted to talk with you about today were some of the challenges that you've been faced with and have overcome. And that's not to say that you had a challenge come up and you overcame it straight away and it was all really easy. And that's why I want to talk about it, I guess. And like I just said, I think that people can see and perceive us from the outside in a slightly different way, maybe in a slightly more polished way, a slightly more dreamlike way, if you like, than the real life actually is. And that's why I think I'm keen to just hear how things really are. And so there were 3 things that I, as you know, kind of pinpointed that I would love to hear about your experience of being challenged by. And so should we just kind of launch into them?
Absolutely. Go for it.
Awesome. Okay. So the first one I loved hearing about recently, actually, from you, because it's not a conversation I'd had with you before, and it's certainly not something I can relate to. And it's about the experience that you had when you decided to make that move from Denmark to the UK. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, but it's not from Denmark to the UK.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you wouldn't even know that. But it actually started. I'm not going to start with my whole life story, but it's quite to me still a surprising fact about my life that when I was 18, up until I was 18, I was raised and grew up in Denmark, and I feel very much Danish, to Danish parents, and still have family members living there. And then when I was 18, I did that thing where I said to my parents, I would like to become an au pair in America. I had this complete American dream. And my mom and dad were very supportive of my, adventurous spirit. And I sounded a lot more adventurous, and I actually felt on the inside I was petrified.
I love that.
When they had printed off the papers and said, right, put your signature right there. And I thought, oh my goodness, are you trying to get rid of me? And off I went to Vermont, where I lived on a mountaintop for a year at the age of 18, taking care of 2 little boys. And at the time I didn't speak English. I mean, no more than what I'd learned in high school. So of course I was in boot camp right there with 2 little boys who thought, you sound funny. Everything I said.
How brave. Well done.
It felt very brave. And that was a steep learning curve. It really was, because I was confronted, of course, with homesickness and just having nothing around me that reminded me of who I was. So it was a complete, immersion into American society. And I learned a lot about myself, of course. And one of the biggest gifts I got from that year is that I learned to speak English, which was an amazing gift that opened up so many more opportunities. So would you believe it? When I was there, my mom and dad moved to the Middle East, initially just for a year, but it turned out to be for 10 years. So they moved to Abu Dhabi at the time because my dad is a doctor, or was a doctor, and got a job there. So of course I wasn't going to go back to Denmark and study in rainy, cold Denmark. I wanted to go to the beach and live there. So I lived there for a good 6 years prior to coming to the UK. So I lived in Abu Dhabi and in Dubai. I became a life coach actually when I lived there. So I would go back and forth between Dubai and Denmark, where I took my qualifications, always knowing that I wanted to study psychology. But it was, I think, my first tentative steps towards what I knew. You know, I do really believe that we all know deep down what we're here to do. And I had always asked questions that would be that of a psychologist. You know, I mentioned before that my dad was a doctor, and I always said, I want to be a doctor. And he said one day, no, you don't. You want to be a psychologist. Wow. And I said, how can you tell? And he said, well, you always ask what we call Louise questions. So when they would be talking about illness and someone having cancer, my question was always around the dinner table, how did they feel? And they always looked at me like, well, what do you think they felt? It was the most obvious to them. But for me, that was the far more interesting aspect of illness than the physical illness. So I was really interested in that.
Wow.
And it was really pivotal moment for me to have that reflected back from my dad as well, who could sort of see the difference in these two modes of being. And I think just propelled me towards what I do now. So I applied to university at University of Westminster in London and got in and met my husband, and the rest is history, as they say.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. Gosh, so much to kind of come back to in that. I love that your dad made that recognition in you and was able to have that conversation with you. I just think that's incredible. And you were clearly so perceptive at that age, and like you say, it was probably all mapped out for you. You knew where you were headed. Yeah. You just didn't quite realize until he did reflect it back to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And in hindsight, I think, Joe, maybe part of my motivation for doing what I do now, I think is, I mean, I'm someone who's really touched by films like Moana, for instance, the Moana film, because if anyone has watched it listening, there is that wise old grandmother, the town nutter,
yes,
who says to Moana, go with what your heart tells you, right? That's your calling in life. This is who you are. And there's that whole beautiful song about it. And I know it's all Disney and glossy and everything, but I think if we can connect our children to that thing that we can see that lights them up, even if it falls outside of our ambition on their behalf of going to university and getting this accolade and that accolade, but can really illuminate what they have shown us so far through their skill set and their personality and their strengths and their weaknesses and everything. If we can kind of help them synthesize that, I think we save them so much, so many detours in life of not knowing who they are and just kind of being that mirror back to them. I think that is what we all should aspire to do for our kids.
That's beautiful. That is going to resonate with so many people. And I was thinking, what's the complete opposite to that? And I believe, and I might be wrong, but I believe that the complete opposite to that is what we were asked when we were children. What do you want to be when you grow up? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do.
I don't know whether it was like that when you were growing up.
Of course, yeah.
It almost gave us that pressure. Oh my gosh, I need to think of a thing I want to be.
Yeah.
And what your dad recognized was what you were emanating, which what you emanated meant that was what you were going to absolutely thrive doing, because that was what was just coming out of you. And he was able to then maybe put that into a bit of a I don't know, turn it into a role, if you
Yeah,
like, to give you
condense it a
something
little
then to
bit, right?
imagine.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it
Wow,
was very
that's
helpful.
amazing. I love that.
But I was 28, Joe, at the time. So no, he said
Okay.
it before, but I was 28 by the time I finally did something about it. But it's never too late, right?
Absolutely.
No, I
No,
was what you call a
absolutely not.
mature student.
Definitely. So by the time you got to the UK then, I I guess that the grandness of moving from your home country to another country had already happened at
Yeah.
quite a young age. So did it come quite naturally to move to the UK and then start your education here?
It really did, Joe. And I think it's all because it's relative, right? So when you've lived in a different part of the world, two different, very different parts of the world, moving to the UK, I was suddenly struck with how many similarities there is between Danish culture and English culture. And had I never left Denmark, I would have been maybe struck by how different these two cultures are because it would all seem so foreign.
Yes.
So I felt very instantly, at home here. But what really struck me as well, leaving Dubai behind, which was very much my home, in part because my mom and dad lived in the same country at the time,
Yeah.
and I had a beautiful life there. I loved living there, but I've always been a big believer in not outstaying my welcome. I've always been I really admired people who know when to quit. So to not wait for so long that you end up being sick and tired of your job and being the grumpy person who can forever complains and stuff. And I just won't let that happen to me. So I could be quite decisive when it comes to making my next move. And the times in my life where I've had to really pivot, moving around, to another part of the world, I know it's right when I've got this complete calm inside of me, even though I remember boarding the plane and everyone being in tears and worry for me and, oh, this is such a big thing, and not actually even shedding a tear on the plane because I just was consumed with this is right for me.
Yeah. A
And
real
good, and
peace.
yeah, and it was such a transition. But then I found my new home in that I found my husband 2 weeks later, which
Goodness
instantly
me.
felt like home to me. So it was, I think, when things are right, this is certainly what it's been like for me in my life. There are generally a sense of a green light, like an open door. I don't need to go in with a sledgehammer and try and force my way through. I've sort of always noticed that there is an ease to things that are right for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love your awareness. I love your sense of clarity, and definitely think that what you said about knowing when you're ready to move on
Yeah.
will will really speak to some people. I think that's
So,
lovely.
yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so I guess that anything after all that traveling from a young age is gonna be like completely easy for you. Then is it? Is life just a dream now?
Of course, Joe. I've not had a single bad day since.
There you go. The
Yeah,
end. No, I'm
the
joking.
end. Yeah.
So you obviously like a challenge, and I would love you then to now tell us a little bit about your business and how that came to be and what challenges you faced and overcame with that.
Well, it may sound from my story as if I'm just always courageous, always do these big, brave steps. But ironically, I was actually called in Danish, there's a word called a safety junkie. It's a really awful word, but it comes from me always doing the safe thing, always liking being home with mom and dad and feeling this was my little haven and being quite shy.
Yeah.
But alongside that, I have also had a very sort of gregarious side to me that I was yearning to find a space to sort of exercise more in my life. And so I knew when I met this, I became a mom, obviously. And I think for many of us, we can maybe relate to this feeling that, your self-consciousness kind of goes out the window to some extent, right? The whole process of giving birth is pretty much like, right, what have I got left in terms of modesty? That's like the first layer of, right, you can forget the pretense of what you think of yourself.
Things are different now.
Things are different. And then every little situation, from sort of being silly with your kids and stuff, I'm just aware that kind of peels off some onion layers every time you allow yourself to just be childlike again, which your children really invite you to do, right? And then I met an important person on my journey who showed me that it's possible to have the qualifications that I had at the time and not just sit and wait to become a research psychologist in London with my qualifications. I couldn't personally think of anything worse for me with those long hours and working with very sort of heavy clinical stuff. And this person was showing me, no, you can actually set up a business. You can actually create these little workshops where you bring some clarity to other parents' life and like do more what is now known as positive psychology, which so suits my nature to do.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah.
And that's when I became aware that there would be an element of public speaking and allowing myself to be seen more, which, I won't lie, Jo, has been and still is one of the biggest things I wrestle with. Is this, on the one hand, feeling shy still, or not shy, but sort of just have a healthy dose of doubt about, sometimes unhealthy dose of doubt as to whether I'm okay to step out on a stage. And then always finding that when I do, I come alive in a way that feels deeply purposeful for me. Feels like this is what I'm supposed to do.
So does it feel quite natural actually then once you've got started?
Yeah, it does.
I love that. Can I ask how you feel at that point where the doubt is kind of tapping you on the shoulder, but you've got to get up and speak? You've got to put your professional self up there in front of people. How do you feel in those moments before?
Oh, I love that you asked that question, because I'm trying to really know myself from that angle better, and it feels different now to what it felt like.
Yeah.
But what it feels like now is that whenever I am in that fear space, I know that I'm being very self-conscious, and I'm actually being very narcissistic in that moment, because the fear pertains to what might they think of me. Me, right? And but it's really quite an egotistical sort of stance, isn't it? A lot of fear is about public speaking is about, what if they don't like me, or what if I'm not to everyone's taste? And what really helps me time and time again is to take the personal out of it. So to say, who am I to deprive these people of this message? So I consider myself to be more of a vessel for this information or for this knowledge. And if I touch just one person, so in my journey so far, of course, there in the early days, there were days when I had maybe 3 signups to something, or 1, on a really dire, event. And I could either cancel, or I could say, that was the one person who needed to hear this message, and then turn it into something very much more intimate and give them just the best service they could possibly get. And that helps me every time.
I love that. I love that you've experienced that, because I can really relate with my networking events as well. Because back in the early days, there were occasions when there were hardly any sign-ups, and my immediate reaction was, or my overriding reaction was, oh my gosh, obviously no one liked the last one they came to, so no one's coming because of me. And I took on a very similar narrative really to what you've just said, which was, well, hang on a minute. So those 3 people that have signed up, they're the people I need to be meeting today.
And don't they matter? I mean, it's almost as if you write them off as, they're not enough for me. Yeah.
So ever since I sort of battled with that. I think I did cancel one once, and then the next time there were low numbers, I had a really stern word with myself, and I said, you go show up and you give them 100% of you, even though they're only a few people, because those people they matter.
Yeah.
And it's by pushing yourself, I think, at times like that, when you do have big doubts that it's all about you. You never think, well, actually, maybe they've just got other commitments, or maybe they're going through a hard time right now, or maybe money's an issue right now. I didn't used to think of those things, but actually, we can put lots and lots of things in place to reason why someone might not be able to commit to something, and none of those reasons are us.
That's so true. And the stories we tell ourselves when we really become aware are quite often not serving us, but we take them for gospel, we take them for fact, when really they quite often just keep us staying small, and it's just not helpful.
I agree.
And it's a really childlike process, isn't it? Because it's exactly what happens to our kids, for instance, when we critique them or we tell them off a lot, is that, or if mom and dad are around all the time, if that's like a constant state, children will always say, there's something I've done, something about me. So it's a very young part of us that actually behaves that way. So it's really good when we get that awareness that we can kind of be the adult and go, hey, no, there are other possible scenarios here, and I can choose which one I give more space.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So would you say then that through the experience of running your business and by putting yourself out there, you have grown in confidence?
Yeah. I'm really consolidating this, because it feels almost like a transformation to me sometimes, where I'm not aware anymore very often of sort of feeling out of my comfort zone, and I know I need to still do that, and I'm trying often to do things that bring me out of my comfort zone, but it's equally helpful sometimes to look back, as we said before, and really trace that journey you've been on, which will be different for you from my journey, but we all know a rough starting point of what the idea, for instance, of public speaking or being the host of something, what physical reaction I could have to that. I mean, literally felt like I could almost go and be sick to begin with. But the crazy thing is, how can something that can make you so nervous and so sick almost feel so right once you stand in it for long enough to feel that there is a peak to the fear? There's that point where you're nearly about to throw the paper in the ring and kind of go, I'm running out now. It's too much for me. I can't feel anymore.
Yep.
To sort of almost holding a tarantula in your hand and realizing that it doesn't get any worse than that. And then you come down on the other side and you realize, okay, I'm warm now. I got past that initial surge of adrenaline. And from that point on, things are like, I'm driving the car. I know how to do this. So if you can just tolerate that insane, visceral reaction you can have to it in the beginning, I find that there is a beginning and a middle and end, much like our kids' tantrums, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah. And they don't last forever.
They don't. Yet at the time when you're in them, or when the child is having the tantrum, it feels like the biggest thing and the hardest thing ever, doesn't it? But it is, like you say, when you almost step out and you look at it with an adult's eyes rather than perhaps with that inner child kind of feeling, that you can see that it never lasts forever.
No.
And it, you can look at it quite logically. Actually, certainly the difference between me before an event, if I'm feeling nervous before it, and 2 minutes into the event, or 5 minutes maybe into the event, it's like I'd love to sort of almost record my stress levels or my anxiety levels and what have you, because it must change massively over a matter of minutes. So
even just hitting record on this podcast, right? I think we both had a feeling that now it matters, so now we tense up, and then
absolutely.
I don't know about you, but I'm aware of kind of having dropped back into my body again. I feel safe now.
That's it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We can definitely build things up. And I guess to have a nice, quiet, calm word with ourselves to
Yeah.
reassure that all is well
Yeah.
can certainly help, can't it?
Definitely. Definitely.
So, very quickly, because I want to move on to some other things, I know that you spoke with me recently about how coming to your first How Does She Do It networking event was a little bit of a venture for you.
Yeah.
Would you mind talking around that a little bit?
Yeah. So for anyone who hasn't been to your events, Joe, obviously what you do is you allow everyone to have this, think 1 minute introduction, which you're very flexible
A
around.
little bit flexible,
You're
yes.
flexible around that, which is very nice. So I think you were my first networking event I ever attended. And you come there with your business card, and you kind of have to, the idea is that you network and introduce yourself. And I must admit, I've always loved coming back to your events, and I've said it to you many times, because you talk to this thing that we all experience. Whereas I've been to, which is the very, I mean, my fear is probably everyone else's fear about standing up and promoting themselves, especially
Yeah.
if it has to be done in such a condensed way. And my experience with many other networking events is that we mustn't talk to that, or we don't talk to that. So we just pretend as if. And it's when we pretend as if that, and the pink elephant is in the room, that it has way too much power. And then
Yes.
something kind of happens where I think it just becomes mask to mask as opposed to person. So for me, what you do at these events is just very important, not just for how it functions there, but I think it's that overarching message of, you can invite your fear along. It's okay. It's right here, and it's there to protect you.
I love
But it
that.
doesn't need to be in the driver's seat. And you could give people this little free fall experience of thinking, this is scary, and I did it.
Absolutely. I think that what I like to encourage people is that it is a safe space. So let's use that space to practice, practice our confidence, practice how it sounds to even speak out loud that we've got a business.
Exactly.
And accept that, we're all human. I know I say this an awful lot, but we are all human beings. We do not have to be robotic. We do not have to tell everyone how wonderful and amazing our business is if actually we're struggling a little bit with it. I would far rather people share their experiences, because I feel that that's the best way to relate to each other, because we've all had those experiences, rather than have people sort of stand there kind of saying how wonderful life is and everything's perfect and, I'm earning millions, because that's not going to be quite so relatable anyway. And I'm all about connection. I want to bring people together, not repel them from one another.
Yeah. But it's that thing of the mask is so contagious, isn't it? If you don't take off your mask, then I can't either.
Oh, I love
because
that.
it's kind of like taking off your shield, isn't it? That protects something that's ultimately quite vulnerable.
Yeah.
So it's something that we do at the same time, or when you do it, you give me permission to do the same. So I'm just very aware of that in my work as well. I try and do that as well on my courses, my workshops as well, so that there is sort of breakthrough, that I'm aware that people will project all sorts of things onto me about my mothering skills and me as a mom and my family, and that I get that that's part and parcel of being someone who has expertise in a field. But it's very important to me as well to be relatable and to show people that we're not aiming for perfection.
Yeah.
Very important. Yeah.
And that's certainly spoken to me when I have come on your courses, and it's almost like you give us permission to breathe a sigh of relief and go, oh, okay, right, we're not having to aim for perfection here. We're just going to do the best that we can.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful way to work and to make your clients feel so much less judgmental of themselves, actually.
Yeah. We are so hard on ourselves.
Yeah. We
So hard
really,
on
really
ourselves.
are.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
and I love that you give us permission to, not do all the things right all the time, but
yeah.
just to do our best.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, moving on, I wanted to very quickly talk around day-to-day experiences. Being, as you said, you're a mum, you run a business, you're a wife. I think it's really important to share what works for you. And are you a very structured person, or are you actually quite flexible? And how do you make things work for you and your family in this life?
Yeah, that's such a good question, isn't it? I'm not someone who thrives in a whole lot of structure. I'm beginning to really accept that about myself, that I'm not very good with lists and too much planning. And it can really stress me out if I have big deadlines, because I spend a lot of time mulling over what I want to say and thinking I'm not doing anything productive, when really that's where a lot of this stuff comes to me, through my walks, through conversations and podcasts such as yours. And I synthesize all that stuff, but then it pours out of me in days leading up to the event. So you won't see me having produced my work for 2 months from now. And it means sometimes I'm held to be around, because there is an intense couple of days, if like a little week up until something big in my life, where I'm fairly unavailable. So still deciding whether that is something I should embrace, or if I need to maybe make some adjustments there. I think there's room for improvement there.
Sure.
But this is kind of how I work best, off the cuff a little bit, when things come from a more immediate place in me, actually.
Yeah.
Saying that, I would say, of course, we thrive on some form of structure in the family. I would say our family life kind of pivots around some important events, like having dinner around the dining table every night.
Yeah.
It's a very important, very Danish cultural thing I've taken with me, that the dinners can take a long time, and you can stay and sit around the table afterwards. And I'm kind of trying to pass it on to my children. I understand, being 6 and 9, this doesn't always mean that we succeed at it, but I know what mechanisms make it more likely. And if Dean and I can focus on making that an enjoyable part of the day, where we don't focus solely on how you sit, whether you eat with a knife and fork, how much, how little you eat, and what you eat, we stand a chance at actually wanting them to stay at the table, right? Also, I'm fairly flexible as to whether we take some arts and craft to the table while we finish eating our dinner, because for us, it's really important that we just spend that time together, whatever that looks like. And I think a lot of us we can easily fall into some unrealistic expectations about what young children ought to be able to do, or give up altogether and say, oh, the TV is just going to come on every night. And I think it's a shame to give up. It just takes practice. Just like when your child needs to learn to play on their own, it's practice. Okay, Rome wasn't built in one day. So that's a really important aspect. I do like to keep my phone very much aside when I'm with my family.
Good girl.
I don't always succeed, because there could be the odd important thing that trickles in, and I'm just human, to use your own words as well. But we're mindful of how much space that takes up in our family life. I would say I try and get all of my work done by the time I pick up the kids. And when I manage to do that, and I can sort of put that full stop and say, that's enough for today, I can't tell you how good it feels to pick up the kids and sort of just be able to lean into family life in a different way.
Do you feel you're more present when I always imagine you to be the most present mum. You're this leading example for me, who I really admire. But from my personal experience, I know that when I've been able to keep my boundaries, I am so much more of a present mum, and it's more enjoyable as well, because you're not feeling like your brain is being pulled in multiple directions. It can just fully be there for them and you know, that experience together.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Kids know when we're kind of just going through the motions and saying, yeah, I'm right here, and we're not right there. And one of the things that make the biggest difference to people I work with, life and ability to connect with their children, is really to say, it's far better to say, do you know what, love? Right now, I'd like to finish writing this email and then I'm all yours. Or, you know, decide for yourself, when can you be fully present, but then be present and then lean into whatever it is you're doing with your child, as opposed to constantly thinking about work during that time. It's far better than to constantly sort of say, yeah, in a minute, or wow, half-heartedly, because it never really gives that sense of feeling truly seen that children so thrive on.
I agree.
They want the real deal, even if it's just for 10 minutes.
I fully agree. And I also very much resonate with what you just said about how I think children are so perceptive. Yeah. They can pick up on when you're, you know, when your mind's not on the job, if you like, of being parent. And I've even been known to, well, my boys have called me out on it and said, so this is something I need to work on with my parenting. Mum, you've got your phone voice on. You're on your phone, aren't you?
Is that what they say?
Yeah, they've said it when I'm trying to have a conversation with them, but I'm trying to finish something off. So that's something I really need to work on, just putting the phone away. So
I love how kids give us the most honest feedback, right?
Oh, I know.
In the toughest of ways sometimes.
They're like the toughest parents ever.
No,
they are so on it.
They really are.
But I admire that, and I'm embarrassed by it, and I feel bad about it. But if you feel like that, then you're going to do something about it, aren't you? So, you know, I feel I've been called out on that. Not that it happens all the time, but I love the example that you set. And I think sometimes I guess we just need to reassess if we are, you know, not being able to finish the work during the time when they're at school or at nursery or having a nap, depending on the age of children, then we need to reassess, I guess, what we're doing with our work, or, you know, what can be distributed elsewhere.
But I just want to say really quickly, I think it's important that we become aware as business owners, and in any work, I guess, how we refer to our business and our work. I mean, I don't want to talk about my work as if, oh, I got work again. I really want my children to know that this is another part of me that I'm really passionate about. It's a huge part of who I am as well. That they can see that also has a place in my life. So that they come to think of work as not just a means to an end. Hopefully, I'm aware that that's a luxury to have in our life, to also find our work deeply fulfilling. But if we're lucky enough that we do find our work really fulfilling, then I think it's really important that we let that be seen by the children, by our children as well, and not be ashamed of the pull that we feel towards our work as well, because children don't die from seeing mom and dad being filled up by other things in life.
No.
I think it's one of the most, I think it was Jung who said the greatest tragedy or burden for a child is mom or dad's unfulfilled desires in the world that were just put on pause because all I can do in this life is only be your mom and dad, to the detriment of themselves, you know. No child can bear that on their shoulders, ultimately. It's too much pressure.
That's true. That's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, I find that really freeing, actually, to hear. Try and embrace that whenever guilt sets in, which it does for all of us, doesn't it? Sometimes.
It really does. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, all the people I speak with feel that. Yeah. Definitely. Oh, gosh, Louise, I feel like we could go on all day.
Yes.
But I am very aware that you have, we have a set sort of time. So I think we should wrap up with just one last thing, if that's all right. And you might have to come back again if that's okay.
I would be honoured to that.
Because I know you could bring so much to our audience around, you know, that balance. I don't know if balance is the right word, but, you know, between work and family and life. So we should have another conversation for sure. But I just wanted to end with a final question that I'm intending to end each of my interviews with, and that is around the name of my business. So as you know, how does she do it? I believe that she doesn't do it all. I just don't think it's possible to do all the things. And I wondered if you could just share with us one thing that you do or don't do to remain happy and healthy and on track.
There's one of each, actually. Not consistently, but I absolutely love doing something with my body on a daily basis. It's a huge part of me keeping my sanity, grounding myself, and taking care of my mental health. So I almost religiously, but I think it's just a habit I set up early on in my life that it feels so natural to me now. But I will make time to go for walks or a run, depending on what I feel like. Back in the day, I would probably go to the gym. Can't see myself actually wanting to do that anymore, but turn on a YouTube, whatever. There's so many resources these days.
Yes.
And do something to strengthen my body or stretch it for 20, 30 minutes in between clients, in between work. And I actually don't negotiate on that. That is something I do for me that I know is going to be making me better at everything. So I'm more of a gift to my family as well.
Lovely.
So that is just something I have to do. In terms of what I have stopped doing, I would say being Danish, I think there's an enormous pressure in my culture growing up of what women should be able to do. And it all involves having perfect homes, designer furniture, having amazing careers, look amazing, be fit, have incredible organically fed children and households. And we're very high standards in Scandinavia where that's concerned. And for me, it's really freeing to live in a country that's a little bit more diverse where that's concerned. And I've taught myself over the years to lower the bar a lot in that respect, to the point that on my daughter's birthday last weekend, I posted about this on Instagram, but I allowed myself to buy a store-bought caterpillar cake for one of her 2 birthday events, which would have just not happened. But beginning to sort of really question these really rigid dogma, really, that we're surrounded by, that we just internalize without even questioning it, I think can free up so much energy for us.
I love that. And, did the world stop turning because she had a shop-bought caterpillar cake? I've got to admit, it's one of my favourites.
It is pretty good, isn't it? I think she preferred it to the one I'd slaved over for two hours and made with her brother. But, just little things like that, and allowing, fish fingers to be part of the menu some days of the week as well.
Yeah.
Right. And that we can't always have an immaculate house, and there's going to be some damage to things. Things cannot be pristine and only for looking great. So the more I allow myself to lower the bar a little bit and make space for life, really, the more at ease I feel, and the more I can show up and be the kind of mom I really want to be.
I love that. Yeah. That is just beautiful. You've given yourself grace, and it's working. And you should. I think it's just absolutely wonderful. Oh my gosh, that was inspiring. Thank you so much. I really, really love that. I was wondering how that, this kind of ending that I wanted to bring into the podcast was going to resonate with people. And I love your answers. And I'm
such a good question as well, that we all would do well to get clear on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we can't do it all.
No, we can't. No. And what a great place to wrap things up then. Yeah. So we can't do it all. It has been absolutely wonderful to have you. Absolutely. Finally, I wanted to ask if there's anything you'd like to share with the audience before you go. And I should say that we're going to obviously pop all of your contact details and all of your links and handles and what have you in the show notes. So it'll be really easy for people to go and click a link and find you and connect with you. But is there anything you'd like to share that you've got coming up soon?
Yeah, so really briefly, apart from my parenting courses that you can always find information about on my website. I am very excited to be launching a private members club for parents, any parent who want to be inspired and, get the support, get the ideas, get the, thinking behind, some of the things you would maybe naturally go and Google, but don't really know where to start. You don't necessarily want to invest in some one-to-one sessions, which can come at a slightly different price tag, of course, but you would like to be inspired, feel inspired in your parenting. So I'm going to launch this private membership club for parents who want to be able to get this information in their own time, full of audio files, video files, and discounts on various things. And I'm very excited to be launching that sometime in June.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That is so exciting. Probably another step out of your comfort zone.
For sure.
Another experience for you to be challenged with,
Yeah.
and what a wonderful resource for us all to be able to tap into. That sounds fabulous. Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing me to interview you first. I've really, really loved having you. And like I say, I'm gonna need to bring you back. We need to hear more from you, Louise. But thank you so much.
It's been such a pleasure, Jo. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, I'd love you to take a moment to share and subscribe too. Come and join me over at How Does She Do It Life on both Facebook and Instagram. And until we speak again, I wish you a wonderful week ahead.